Hey, so this is going to be a really quick video about how I deal with the spreads when I'm trading Forex, because sometimes the spreads, they're pretty so like if you're trading something like the majors, then usually the spread's pretty tight, considering if you're trading during a volatile period or you're trading during like a kill zone. Spread's usually pretty tight. But sometimes, like if you're not trading a major, like for example, let's pull up a different pair. So say for example, we're trading GBP and CD, and when you're dealing with pairs that aren't majors, what comes with that typically is a wider spread, a bigger spread, because they're not as volatile. So that's why they have a larger spread. So a question I got is, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with having a big spread? How do I trade with that? Well, it's really simple. So for entries at this 50 level, let's just say, for example, okay, not a setup for me, but that right here, 1.99500, that 50 level. What do we know about the 50 level? The 50 level is an institutional level of support. So say I want to go long. Say I want to go long because of that 50 institutional level of support. But we have to account for the spread. And you've probably heard me in my other trade reviews. Whenever I'm breaking down my trades, sometimes you'll hear me say I got in right above that level to account for the spread. This is what I mean. So for example, we have a 50 level right here. To account for the spread, what I'll do when I'm getting my entry is I'll just put it a couple or a few pips above that established level of support. So like say it's 50, it's as simple as I'll put my orders at like 53. So 53, 52, I'll have those orders scattered out and I'll have them right above the level, okay, right above my level of support to make sure I get filled. Now, sometimes you may still miss it, but by doing that, you'll get in a lot more plays. That spread is that is how I combat it. Okay, just as simple as putting it a few pips above the level. Okay, now for profit targets, I actually don't do that with profit targets. So because with profit targets, it'll typically sweep that level pretty swiftly if you were correct. If you were correct, it'll sweep that level pretty swiftly. It'll clear that level. So like for example, say this is my profit target. Say this high right here. I'm just gonna mark it for you real quick. Say that is my profit target, and let's just say for example that this thing, it came down, okay, it tagged us into play, and now it's coming up right here. So remember, for our entry, we put it a few pips above that level to make sure we get filled to account for the spread. But for profit targets, I put it usually right at the high. So my most common place for profit targets is high of day and previous day's highs. That's my most common place that I take profits. That's if I'm buying. Okay, if I'm shorting, it's just the opposite. It's yesterday's lows or low day, and I will put it right at the level. So like right where that high is, I'll put my orders around these levels. Okay, I don't do the same thing I do with entries where I put it a few pips. The high is a good place to put it. Now, that's how I do it. I know some people, they like to do the same thing. They like to put it a few pips below it. I don't like to do that, because if you're right, if you're right, it'll sweep that level swiftly. Okay, it'll sweep that level swiftly if you're right, and you'll get filled. Okay, even if it's something that's not a major, it's like something like GBP and CD, for example, that's not a major pair. But if you're, and the spread might be like, 5 pips, 6 pips. If you're correct, it'll get you. It'll sweep that level and you'll get filled if you were correct. Okay. Now, yes, like there are those exceptions. There are those times where, and it's happened to me, where it'll just barely tag that level. Like on the chart, you'll see it tag the level. It'll tag that level, but then the spread, like it didn't tag you, and then it'll sell off. Those happen as well, and you got to deal with it. That's part of trading. Like you're not going to escape that completely. You can move your stop to break even in those scenarios where it just barely tags and it sells off. You could just move your stop to break even and protect your or protect it from going in the red. But yeah, that is how I deal with the spread. Again, whenever we have it with my established level of support for an entry, a few pips above it. For profit targets, I just put it at the high. Okay, as simple as that.